Welcome everybody to the second episode of Database. I'm here with Aaron Leopard, also known as Catman, and we're going to have another conversation with dads. So, cheers!
Cheers to dads.
That's good stuff. Wanted a third one here for our audience, but apparently you don't get to have two drinks at the same time.
One beer limit per person.
I don't know why one beer is enough, but totally fine. That was the waitress checking in on us.
We're good.
So, Aaron, what we're looking to get out of this is just more conversations with dads, getting more perspectives, more stories, more experiences, and I want to understand a little bit more about you. So, you've got a child? Tell me a little bit more about where you're coming from.
You're wanting to know a little bit about my background or Luca's background?
Tell me about Lucas.
Okay. Luca is...
what's your favorite thing about him?
He's a character. He seems to be my son. And I know that.
Yeah.
There are plenty of facts to back that up, but there's also, without those, it would be very apparent. He has, most recently, he's developed kind of an artistic eye, which is something that I've always possessed to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I've always drawn, and I went to school and focused on art and all of those things. And
Would you say you were drawn to it?
Ooh, I like it. I like it. It's the right forum for that. I haven't made it into a career, but it's still something I enjoy. And he has recently, just in coloring books. He went from 1 week being all over the place, which is fine and expected, to just being absurdly good.
Nice.
So I've enjoyed watching that. But he's always, from the beginning, one of my first feelings of who he was going to become was he's just always possessed this quality that made me think like he really wanted to speak before he could speak. He just seemed like he had thoughts about things.
Yeah. And
I was so intrigued by what he was observing and what he was considering and what he was learning. And just sort of, I don't know. I mean, it might be corny to think, I think everybody hopes that their kids are advanced in some way, but that particular thing, there's always something kind of behind the visage that I thought he was trying to kind of get out sooner than nature intended or whatever.
That's good.
He's always had a sense of humor. Again, another thing is sort of intangible, but I could always just tell, like, he found entertainment in things that I wouldn't think a creature of his age would be able to really find humor in and stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I like him.
So what's your favorite memory with him?
Oh, man. Well, there's a few. Sort of along the same lines, something that just comes to mind for some reason is, this was probably 2 years ago. We lived in an apartment at that time, and we had gone down to use some sidewalk chalk out near the carport.
Yeah.
And a plane was flying overhead, and that was a point of interest for him, planes at that time. And so he was very excited that he recognized the sound of a plane flying overhead, and my wife was filming him drawing and got that, I guess, statement or discovery on film, and so she was trying to engage in the conversation. And he said, it's an airplane. It's an airplane. And my wife says, really, where? And he said, so sarcastically, right there. And he pointed to the sky, like, where else would an airplane be? And I just thought that was so funny.
That's great. That's great.
So,
how old is he?
He is going to be 4 in 3 months.
Great age.
So,
Great age.
yeah.
Really inquisitive. Really got an interest in just about everything.
Yeah.
And they just soak everything up. Like they just want to learn everything that you can throw at them.
Yeah, he is, and I'm happy about that too. And it's another thing that I don't have a ton of experience with children really of that age when I'm not also that age. I don't have a lot of close family that has children. I mean, I have extended family that have children, but they're either much older than he is, or I maybe don't have a frequent or strong relationship with him. So I just haven't been around that much. So I always try to, I don't know sort of what's normal and what's not.
Sure.
But I try to enjoy everything to the best that I can and everything. I think I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. No, we were just talking about that age of kid, and I was asking about how old he was.
Yes, and that he's very inquisitive and all that. And I don't know if he's any more or less than anyone else. I don't worry about that too much. But yeah, it's enjoyable to see that blossoming.
So we're going to switch it a little bit. And we're going to point in the other direction of the age bracket.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite memory of your father? What is your relationship with your father?
I have a good relationship with my dad. We see each other regularly, and I, appreciate very much the role he's played in my life, and he really loves Luca in a way that I haven't seen him do with any other being. So
Like yourself?
That's
Right.
enjoyable to watch. And of course, Luca responds in kind. They have a special bond, so
That's great.
it's probably, that's sort of not a direct answer to your question because that's more about their relationship, but that's a pretty satisfying
To watch it.
thing to have in my life. So
Yeah.
I feel lucky about that.
So one of the things that often comes up, and for new dads or just dads in general, is that when you start getting into the thick of it, you start understanding more about what your dad did for you when you were growing up. And you start looking back on those things in a different light. And I'm curious to know if you've had those moments when you're working with Luca or when you're spending time with him.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had any maybe singular or specific epiphanies about that. I think.
Have you had the moment of when you're talking to Luca and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that was something my dad would have said?
Actually, more often he'll say something and I'll be like, that's your grandpa. You know exactly where you learned that.
Okay.
I think so. I think maybe what I learned from my dad was, well, I don't know if this is 100% fair, but I was going to say I feel like maybe most of what I learned from him, both in regards to parenting but also just in life, was from observation more than verbal instruction. But as I was formulating that thought, there are things that he spoke to me about that really impacted me, and I still are still sort of tenets to the way I live my life, I guess.
So, if I may, can I interrupt you?
Yes,
there?
yes.
Or are you done with that thought?
No, this is a good time.
Okay. So, for those of you who watched the first episode, and maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, there's a point in there where Derek had talked about the fact that there is practical knowledge in having a father. and having them around to watch and observe in order to take that in, rather than just general theory with that. And so to hear you talk about absorbing what your dad did just by observing him, rather than any sort of practical thought or practical information that he might have just told you.
Explicitly laid out, yeah.
Right, exactly. I think speaks to the importance of fathers.
Yeah.
And we're certainly not denigrating mothers, because mothers certainly have their impact as well. But since we're focusing on fathers,
make a video of moms.
right. We'll leave that to better people than us. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that point while we were talking.
Yeah.
So, did you have more that you wanted to share on that?
No, I mean, I think you're right on. I think there's definite value to someone saying, let me share my wisdom with you, or my experience with you, and explain how I came to that or why I feel that way. But yeah, you can see how people live their lives and carry themselves and all that, and
Live by example.
Yeah. I mean, just a general person you see, maybe you watch their behaviors, that may not be indicative, but in that relationship where you're around someone, even when you're not communicating or interacting with them, or it's just they're present and over a long period of time, I think it's a little more impactful, I guess, or a larger sample, larger body of work.
Sure.
To I guess form an opinion about, or to take on and absorb and make a part of yourself or whatever.
So this is one of the deeper questions.
Okay. Better.
Yes, please do. Good idea.
I don't want to be unprepared.
Are you a better father than your dad?
Oh, it is just the hard-hitting questions.
Right.
I mean,
that's my Barbara Walters question, I think.
Yeah, you got to work on the accent or whatever,
right?
A little bit, but we'll get there another time. I've never really thought of that sort of evaluations ever crossed my mind. I mean, being asked to think of it that way, it's difficult to sort of think of it in that way. I just think that there's different circumstances and different things. I mean, my parents had me, my mother had me when she was 21. I didn't become a parent until I was 31.
Sure.
So, I mean, I know that you were younger than that when you had children, and
yeah,
I just
18.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think you may have a different opinion. Possibly, I don't, because actually, I guess you've had one when you were older than that as well. I don't know
3 more
how you compare, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
One of those things I wouldn't know the difference, but I've considered that, and I've just thought, for me personally, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't have been the same person. I don't know how that would have looked or felt or become, or I have no concept of what that would be like. My best guess is overwhelming.
Yeah.
To an absurd degree, but
you're not wrong.
Yeah. It's not a cakewalk for me, but yeah. So I think there were different circumstances. I think that he would say maybe he would have done different things at different times, given the chance, but there's just no way to do that. So I don't think that he really dwells on that. I wouldn't ask him to, and I don't. So it's a really roundabout way of dodging your question. I think, though, that I wouldn't be the father I am to Luca without Dad being the father to me, whatever that looked like.
Right.
I mean, he could have done it differently, and I would have been different as a result. And I'm okay with the way I am, and I feel like I'm doing what I think is right for him, and I hope that he won't feel differently about that. So I think in the end, everybody's cool with everybody's how everyone's done in their role.
Right.
So,
So, what's the most fulfilling part of being a father for you?
I think I've sort of always had a nurturing aspect. It's always been important to me that people be as happy as they can be in any given circumstance or environment, and if I can contribute to that, I try. And so I guess the times where I feel like, yeah, I've provided what he needs today, that seems to be what it's all about for me. I tend to think of human behaviors when you're trying to explain why people do certain things. And I'm talking all manner of things, absurdly crazy things, violent things. I mean, just behaviors in general. I tend to look at them sort of through a biological lens, and I think that's harder for some people than others. But I feel like you could find a lot of explanations in that. Kind of the nature and nurture thing, and just, I mean, everything shapes you day to day, and there's usually a reason behind everything.
We don't do happy hour.
What was the question?
What I was curious about was, what do you find
Stream
most
of consciousness.
right? What do you find most fulfilling about being a dad? What do you get most joy out of?
Yes. So even if it's something as simple as, this is not, I was going somewhere else. Even if I can look back and say, look, I was able to get him to pre-K and see him interact with his friends in a way that says to me he's doing it right or whatever. Sure. And pick him up and get him fed and feed him food that's better than the food I give myself. And get him cleaned up and read to and in a comfy warm bed and get him into a peaceful state. Like, that's what it's all about for me. It's just taking care of him. I think that's where I was going. Is I feel like that's always been really important for me. Is just making sure somebody's okay, particularly if I'm responsible for them.
Right.
Yeah, and for us, like I said, we were a little bit older to have kids. It was really important to both of us that if we're going to do this, we're going to do this because we want to do this. We want to. I mean, again, through a biological lens, there's going to be a need or a want for us to do this. There's not, in my opinion, and again, I don't know if it's controversial or if it's maybe not at all. I mean, super common, but
super controversial episode.
Why does a person want to have kids? Why do you want it? Some people might want it because they maybe don't have a lot of love in their life, and that's their way of getting that unconditionally.
Sure.
But a lot of it is just, it's part of your makeup. You want to continue the line. But we didn't want to. Am I foreshadowing a question or anything?
You just reminded me of one that I'm going to ask later. So yeah.
We just felt like if we're going to bring a human being into this life, and I think this also speaks to the age, that maybe you don't have that experience when you're 18 or 21 or even 25. life is not fun forever or all the time. Like, I think about sometimes he's going to go through the things I go through in terms of slogging through a work day or dealing with whatever. And sometimes I feel like, man, that sucks for him one day. How could I have done that to him? So we just thought, like, let's really be sure we're ready financially, mentally, that we're in proximity to the people we want them to be around and all those things. So I guess at the end of the day, if I can look at being like, hey, I gave him what he needed on that level, and he says, hey, thanks for reading me a book, Dad, or I love you, Dad, or whatever. Yeah, that's the victory right there.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did we run out of tape?
No,
After that answer?
No, we're really good on that. The more answers like that we can get, the better. So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Derek and theory versus actual practice and so forth. We touched on it a little bit. But how did you learn to be a dad? I feel like I'm leading the question, and I'm not going to do that in future episodes. But I'm curious.
Okay with that. I'm okay with that. I can play along.
Okay.
How did I learn to be a dad? Well, like I said, I think not that other people don't, but as I said, just have a desire to be a father or a parent or whatever, or that my want or desire for that is any different than anyone else's. But I think that I've kind of had that. I guess I've always expected to have children. I think I maybe didn't consciously think about it so much as I just figured that was going to happen at some point. So I guess I feel like to a certain degree I didn't necessarily feel like I didn't really seek out, like, hey, how do I need to do this in the future?
Right.
But also I was very observational as a kid with regards to, like, my parents. And again, maybe not a conscious thing, but I just think I watched them.
You absorbed it.
Yeah. And I think I just tried to be like, hey, I like that quality, or hey, this could be something that you guys could improve on. So let me take that with me. So.
Well, every kid, when they're in third grade, it's like, I'm not going to let, I'm going to let my kids eat all the candy they want. And then you become 35 and you become the guy who has to say, no. You ate hardly any of your vegetables.
That's what I was just going to say. I've been forced to recall the times I sat at the dinner table for hours in front of cold green beans or whatever it was. Right. Asparagus, I think, was my big no-no.
My wife was like cold pasta salad, or it was cold pasta that you can only reheat so many different times.
Yeah.
And so she would come down to the breakfast table the next day and find this bowl of cold pasta, and so she won't touch pasta salad anymore.
That's funny.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't necessarily leftovers, but my parents would make beef stroganoff, and some people love it.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like all of these terrible things combined, including mushrooms, and I hate mushrooms. And it just smelled awful in our house.
Well, and there's sort of a wide floppy noodle.
Yes.
Which is not.
Yes. Egg noodles are my enemy.
If you're going to describe the most appetizing noodle, it doesn't have those qualities.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's sort of it's like a sauce. It doesn't know what it wants to be. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
All right.
I like it, but I can understand it fully.
Right.
Yeah.
So I lost our spot there. Did we talk about everything we needed to on that one?
Yeah, we covered everything.
What the hell? So I like this question too much that I've got to go back to it. You were talking about carrying on the family name, right? Just having children and
extending the line, or
right?
whatever,
Extending the line,
branch, or whatever the case may be.
So you have a son.
Yeah,
I have 4 daughters.
yeah,
So you have an experience that I'm not going to have, and so far I've got an experience that you don't have.
yeah,
Right. One of the things that often happens in today's society, and it's been there for a really, really long time, is the pressure on men to have a son to carry on the last name.
yeah.
Right? And so I wanted to get your insight on, given the more wide acceptance of people who are gay or transgender or those sorts of other lifestyles.
Yeah.
And you're also dealing in a society where people are a little bit more free to change their names, or maybe they don't take on their spouse's name, or in cases of men, they change it to something entirely different, or they take on their wife's name, whatever works for them.
Yeah.
I wanted to get somebody else's insight on, is that still going to be a pressure as the years go on? Do you feel like that's something that's just naturally ingrained, or do you feel like that might dissipate as society grows?
In a general, like a societal sense?
In a societal sense, yes.
Oh.
Well, let me first preface it by asking, did you feel that pressure before you had
No,
Luca?
it's not important to me.
Not important to you at all?
No.
Okay.
That part of it's a fairly easy answer for me. Not that I'm against it, or I don't.
Doing okay?
You're doing great.
Thank you. Don't let the quick answer suggest something that I don't intend to. Doesn't ever cross my mind. To be honest, another thing that I just think I sort of expected for some reason is that I would grow up and meet someone and have 2 children. One would be a boy and one would be a girl. Knowing that it's not as easy as that. None of that is as easy as that.
Right.
But then I kind of started going, okay, well, we're getting close to maybe being at a point where we want to embark on this journey. And if I could choose, what would I have first? And I started thinking about, well, it'd be cool to have, for my daughter to have an older brother to stick up for. But then I thought, for some reason I started leaning the other way. Like, hey, it would be amazing to have a precious little girl. And again, not having been had a lot of relatives that I was close with that had children, I didn't necessarily know, what it meant, but that it sort of had that feeling for a period of time. Well, at this point, we're probably only going to have one, so it doesn't matter so much. But I guess what I'm getting at is, had he been a she, or should he be a she, or become a he who likes he's? I'm okay with any of that. It was very Seussical.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Are
we in Whoville?
Yeah. Because to me, like I said, we made a decision on the time and what we wanted and what we want for him or her or whomever, and that doesn't change based on gender or preference or any of that. And I've just never had, like, I guess, if the Leopard family name ended with him or me or whatever, maybe other people would be like, it's a shame. But it's just never been a part of my thought process, I guess.
Cool.
We're all just people.
We're all just...
How's that?
That's deep. That's deep. That's good. Okay. So I like this question, but I'm going to come back to it later.
Okay.
So
Hey, it's your show.
I'll just flip around a little bit.
I really like this beer. I just got what you got. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Oktoberfest of
Paulaner Oktoberfest. Yeah, it's a very nice beer.
Yummy.
Yeah. A little hint of banana in there, I think.
Oh, I hadn't picked up on that, but I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste like
It's not made with bananas.
which is good.
It's true. It's true. So this is a really interesting question to ask you today.
Okay.
How do you feel about work-life balance, and how do you approach it?
Well, what the viewers may not know, probably don't,
Probably don't.
is that my last day working with you is tomorrow.
It's true.
And
Why?
I am
What do you know?
ecstatic. My work-life balance has not been ideal. So, some context that you're aware of is that we work outside of Portland, Oregon, and I live currently outside of Salem, Oregon, which is about an hour's commute. But there are people who work in closer proximity that have similar time commute. I think yours is not so much different than mine.
I'm about 40, 50 minutes
You
out.
live on a map very much closer, centimeters closer.
Right.
But yeah, just the factoring in the commute. I mean, that was a big piece of me looking elsewhere. There are many other pieces that we don't need to get into now. But that, yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I just started thinking at a certain point. I mean, I thought that was going to be sort of a temporary thing, and it kind of went on longer than I might have expected from the outset. But at a certain point, I just went, man, two extra hours in my day for meal prep or just quality time, or
Right.
I mean, anything.
Right. Well, and when you're dealing with a child that young,
Yeah.
right, your commute would require you to get up at a time that maybe he's up, maybe he isn't. I don't know your routine.
Yeah.
But in my household, I'm oftentimes leaving when my youngest daughter is waking up.
Yeah.
You know, he's 4, same age as Luca, just a little bit older. And then there are plenty of times where I'm driving home, and by the time that I get home, everybody else has already eaten, and I'm saying goodnight in between forkfuls of whatever spaghetti or whatever is else that we've made for that night.
Yeah.
And so I get like maybe all of maybe 5 minutes with really hard. And then you throw in certain industries, there is a crunch time that happens, and there's ways of dealing with that by different companies. And some companies say, you know what, we're going to have mandatory overtime.
Yeah.
And so for whatever period of
exacerbates.
time that you have that mandatory overtime, you've now effectively eliminated
Your presence.
a parent's ability to be there, to have that time. And I understand why the companies do it, but sometimes it's just not enough to have the weekends in order to try to make up for all of the time that you missed.
Yeah.
And I understand that they pay overtime. That's why it's called overtime.
But there are other
Sometimes
costs
that
involved
money
than just
isn't
money.
worth whatever the extra amount is. It's not worth the time that you have with your children.
Yeah.
And so finding that work-life balance is already difficult.
Yeah.
And it, as you mentioned, it gets exacerbated in those instances. And that can be really, really frustrating. So based off of conversations that we've had, you're moving in a different direction starting tomorrow. I hope to stay employed tomorrow and beyond.
Yes.
That would be really nice.
You're not ready to throw in the towel completely.
Really not. I'm really not. But it sounds as though you've looked at your options and you found an option to get back some of that balance.
Yes.
And how important was that in your decision?
Yeah.
Was it a primary? Or?
I would say if I'm thinking about all the reasons for me personally,
right,
they're plentiful, and I would love to have 2 extra hours in my day, if even to play video games or
right,
sit in a dark room facing the corner. I'd rather do that than work most of the time, all of the time. But yeah,
let's be clear. That's any work. That's not specific to the job that you currently are enrolled at.
But yeah, it's like I said, that just became a time where it's like you said, but I'm helping get him up and get ready, and then say to Mom, you may now take him to school because I'm going to work. And that's fine, that's worked okay. But really getting home, because for me it's like, okay, work's over. All I want to do at this moment, upon punching out, is be home with the 2 people I want to spend all of my time with. And you can't get home quick enough. But then on top of that, the beyond just being like, I want to be around these people, these people depend on me, I want to care for them. And so it's just that, it just enhances that feeling of like, I can't get there quick enough, that much more. And then when you get there, you're walking in the door after getting up early, getting everybody ready, driving an hour to work, working 8 hours, or in this right now, longer, taking a shorter lunch against your choice, driving through traffic where everybody, all they want to do is get home, and then you walk in the door and you don't know what else is going on with everybody else already. It's just, it's not easy all the time. And then, so then by the time you get in there and you are able to switch gears, you're switching gears to get in the mindset of, got to get everybody ready for bed. It's not, it's not all about, I don't know, maybe it sounds selfish, I don't know. It's not all about for my gratification, but gosh, it would be nice to have that be a little more quality time than just time of meeting needs.
A chance to be able to decompress and actually spend some quality time, read a book, give them a bath.
I mean, we do try to do those things that you mentioned regularly. So we definitely try to just be like, regardless, like I said, we want them to be clean and warm and read to and soothed and comfortable, and so we make it happen. But yeah, how great will an extra hour each night be to do those things more comfortably and even do even more. So so in answer to your question, for me, there's a lot of reasons to take this new job, but for with them in mind, proximity was a major factor in that. That's the answer to your question.
Okay. So how do you balance out your own specific needs as a person with your responsibilities to taking care of a wife, taking care of a child, home maintenance, work, all of the other things that go on in life? How do you balance that out?
The only reason I hesitate is just that I don't know if I have an answer for that. I mean,
you might not.
I make it happen.
Right.
I don't necessarily know how.
You can say that you fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah,
I think what a lot of us do.
Yeah, that's the thing is, yeah, you kind of just see what kind of time and energy you're left with. And you try to apply that to the things that need it the most, I guess. So if certain things have to go untended for a period of time, that's just, and people prioritize things differently. But I'm looking forward to...
Do your neighbors complain about how often you mow your lawn?
They haven't made specific complaints, but I know they're thinking about it. Because this was a few months ago now. I mowed the lawn toward the end of the summer, not because the lawn needed to be mown, but because the weeds had gotten too tall. And the older gentleman that lives across the street, I think, heard the lawnmower and went, "That's funny. Seasons are changing, the lawns aren't really growing that fast," and looked out the window and said, "Oh, he's mowing his weeds." So he came over and showed me how to take a trowel and dig up the weeds. And I went, "I appreciate the concern. That's a skill I feel like I already had. I've chosen to deal with it a different way right now. And I don't think you're that interested in knowing the reasons why, so..."
Right.
I'll give you your moment. And
so I'm going to state the obvious here, because sometimes I need to do that. His interest wasn't necessarily in
educating me.
Right. It was much more about, I have a bunch of weeds in my yard, and I think you're the source. So
yeah.
Let's see what we can do about that, shall we?
He did say at least 3 times, "I just wasn't sure if you knew this." Yes,
he and I wouldn't get along
I very well that shovels dig things up. So anyways.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So let's go through some rapid fire dad questions.
Okay.
These are all based off of stereotypes.
Okay, there are no whammies in this, are there? There could be. I could hear a buzzer.
Right.
We may need to go to the judges.
That's fair.
Okay.
So, last thing you grilled and when?
I mean, in terms of meat or barbecue, I don't do it that much because I don't have the equipment, but it's something that I really want.
Okay.
But the first thing I thought of was a grilled cheese sandwich.
Oh.
I've made that not that long ago.
Okay.
It doesn't count. Okay. Off to a bad start. All right, next one.
Gas or charcoal?
Oh, well.
Since you don't have the equipment.
I'm afraid I'm going to answer incorrectly.
Everybody has their own
I
preference.
think charcoal.
That's totally
Don't you
perfect
want
choice.
the flav? Isn't gas sort of
I'm having a King of the Hill moment here. There's a point in there where he says, you taste the meat, not the heat.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about that show is that there's an episode where Peggy and Bobby are actually grilling without without his notice with charcoal, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so great!"
Yeah, that's funny.
And we can never tell Dad.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I get the impression that the flavor's better, but the technology of the gas grill is hard to turn down too.
Either way is fine, and I'm sure that we'll get in the comments plenty of people.
Comment below your preference.
Right, exactly. We'll get plenty of people saying well, I don't even deal with either one of those. I use a Traeger, or I smoke, or I do this or that.
I skin the animal and I eat it alive.
Right. So there's plenty of other options out there, but that's kind of the question that lands. This is a tricky question.
Okay.
Favorite tool in your toolbox or garage?
My favorite tool. I do have a new power drill that I got with
there you go.
Bits and pieces. Totally honest with you, I'm not a manly man in terms of my skill set. So with regards to cars and building stuff, I got a little to learn still.
Sure.
I'm open to it. I try to do it. But that's been a pretty nice one.
My wife has a term for that. I think it's like learning philosophy or something along those lines. A growing mentality. Growing philosophy. So you never say, I'm bad at. You
It's
just
just a
say,
work in progress.
I don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah.
So, very good.
Otherwise, hammer. Hammer was option B
You know,
for
if
that answer.
I had a hammer, I would hammer in the morning, and I would hammer in the evening,
Yeah.
and I would hammer at supper time
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Those are all appropriate times.
I can't think of a better time. Okay, so beverage of choice.
Beer,
Very good. Is there any specific beer
IPA.
other than?
This is delicious.
Okay.
But generally, IPA is the go-to.
Okay.
I'm not picky about brands or styles or anything like that.
Cold and cheap.
Give me something new, I'll try it.
Sure.
I don't necessarily want to drink the same thing every time.
Yeah, that's generally my approach. Although I hate IPAs, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm a bad Portlander, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. That's okay.
Who cooks in your family?
I do.
You do the cooking.
I do.
What do you cook the best?
Well, it's not.
What's your
We've actually had this conversation.
Oh, yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
It's not
We have.
cooking per se,
Right.
But my nachos are to die for.
Right.
But there is. So my mother-in-law is Italian. They're from an Italian family, and so there have been a couple of periods where we've lived with her. Just as we've sort of relocated, sort of to transition, and I picked up a couple of meals from her that I feel like I do some justice.
Okay.
But like pasta dishes.
Yeah, I think you earned back quite a few dad points just by saying nachos are your specialty.
Okay.
So I think that works really well. Is there any? Don't give away all your secrets, mind you.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to share with the audience about good nachos?
Well, they're not just chips and cheese. Okay, you gotta lay out.
This is the knot of knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a cookie sheet. A full and even application of tortilla chips, so that you basically can't see the sheet anymore.
Right.
You do
I can't see sheep.
a full and even application of cheese, so that the chips are near invisible.
Near invisible. Wow, that's quite a bit of cheese.
I like cheese.
That's great. No, that's fine.
From there, the toppings are relatively inconsequential. I mean, you could use those to your preferences. I gotta have black olives on there, and I have a sense that that's sort of an odd thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's something for me. And then the key is that I broil them for just a couple of minutes, as opposed to baking or some other method.
Yeah.
That would be the tip.
So when you put on the olives,
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're using olives from a can.
Yeah, like
Sliced?
sliced black olives.
Okay, sliced black olives. There's oftentimes a lot of like olive juice that's
you
left over.
drain ahead of time.
Drain it. Do you pat the olives dry before you put them on, or
No.
do you still go ahead and
I open the can.
leave them wet?
I use the lid to squeeze it and get all the juice out.
Sure.
Yeah. And then another tip. My wife doesn't like olives on her nachos, or a lot of other things.
Sure.
So I place black olives on slightly more than 50% of the tray,
Very good.
so that as we
Very
consume them together,
Right.
oh, well, you've ran out of yours. I mean,
You're looking out for your wife's caloric intake.
there you go. Yes.
Not that she needs you to. It's just one of those husbandy.
I just claim to not have a good eye for 50-50. Because I'm not going to go into caloric intake. any of that.
Your secret's out now, so it's too damn bad. Okay, stick or automatic?
Oh, I actually I really like to drive in a stick. I don't anymore,
Sure.
but I think, yeah, I'll answer that way.
Okay. This might be right up your alley, I think.
Okay.
Farts. Funny or not?
Hilarious.
Hilarious. Okay. Follow-up question.
Oh man. Yeah.
Farts.
Yeah.
You or the dog?
We don't have a dog.
Oh. Okay.
So Luca.
He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. What do you say? What do I do?
Yeah. Say excuse me and don't ask questions.
Cover for dad, all right? Okay. So, this is the whammy question. Has your kid seen you cry?
I don't think so.
No?
Not yet. I haven't hid it from him. I just don't think it's happened in front of him.
Sure. Are you a crier?
I wouldn't.
Before you answer,
Okay.
let me just set the table.
Okay.
I am the Dick Vermeil of dads. I cry all the time. And my kids have seen me cry endlessly. So
I love that joke because it could be lost on a lot of people, I feel like.
Right.
But I totally
Right.
get that.
Well, if you're Republican in nature, then I'm the Boehner, of dads.
Oh man, that's good. I don't. Growing up, I was, I think, emotional. I think my parents would probably attest to that. But at my age now, I don't find myself, I guess, the emotions coming out in that way that often.
Sure.
But I'm not afraid of it, and I'm not, I'm okay with that, and it happens from time to time.
Sure. So it's not something that you hide; it just doesn't come up.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the question, yeah, that may happen at some point, but not yet. The only time I really remember my dad crying around me was when his father passed away,
Sure.
and that was impactful.
Yeah.
The news, but feeling that tear fall on my head was, impactful.
Expand on that a little bit more.
Well, just when my parents broke the news, he was sitting with me on the couch, and I could hear the voice cracking.
Yeah.
I couldn't look because it had never happened.
Right.
And then, feeling that tear was just like, oh no, it is happening. It really is happening. So, I think there are circumstances with which, I will cry in front of him, but not at this point in time.
It's not because a chip fell on the floor or something.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. That sounds like a really powerful memory for you.
It's etched. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'll go back a question or two.
Okay.
Has there been a time where you didn't know what to do as a parent? And how did you deal with that? Which sounds like a really sort of dumb interview question that you might get from interviewers.
But it isn't.
But it isn't. Because they're not talking about being a parent.
Yeah. I mean, all the time. Particularly because he's our first.
Right. Exactly.
I would say, though, that thankfully, nothing really significant or urgent or catastrophic has made me feel that way. So it hasn't been, and I expect them to come, but there haven't been any like, we got to go to the emergency room, or I don't know, just major things. But yeah, I mean, I think even things like his pre-K or whatever, they sort of have this, I don't know what the right word would be, but they reward good behavior with green cards, and they give red cards for bad behavior. As a whole, they don't over-reward or over-discipline using that tool, which is good. But they do implement it a little bit. And there have been some times, so this is sort of a twofold thing. There have been times where maybe he's come home and he's gotten a red card for bad behavior, and it's been, well, what do we do? Like, how do we want to discipline, or how do we want to treat this? But then there's also the idea of, I guess in fear of who may be watching this, that there may be certain teachers that give those out more easily than others. And so then it goes, well, how do we deal with it knowing that?
Sure.
What's the validity of these and things like that? So, I mean, that's just one example of something where you just go like, how do we want to deal with this? But luckily, nothing to the point of like, if we make a decision and like we can't go back on this, nothing quite that way. And those things will come and all that, but we just try to talk them out and line them up to, I guess, our values. Not to sound cheesy or anything, but
no,
I guess that's
fine.
how you got to make decisions.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Who are other dads that you talk to?
You're one.
Okay. I'm questioning your judgment now.
Who are dads that I talk to?
Do you have? I know that you have a brother. I don't know if he has children.
He's not a dad. My dad's a dad.
Sure. Do you talk to him about it?
I talk to him
stuff?
time to time. Yeah, gosh, I hadn't really thought about that, but I guess I don't necessarily have a huge community of dads to draw upon. I mean, you've been an interesting mind to pick on that subject, because I guess in realizing it now, you're one of the few resources in that way. And then also, just like you had mentioned at the beginning, that you're a dad who has 4 girls, right?
Right.
And I'm a dad who has 1 boy.
Right.
So there's going to be a certain amount of things that are standard and in common, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't have any idea about sort of one another's experience. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I know.
I know what it's like to raise children. Maybe not necessarily boys.
Yeah.
But I've seen enough boys, because you get invited to enough other kids' birthday parties that you end up seeing enough stuff. You have friends who have sons that you get an insight or a perspective from them about what boys are like.
Yeah.
And how that differs from your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting is that based off of the stereotypes that you usually hear about girls and boys and how they differ, my youngest, Maximilia, is she straddles the line between the two of them. There are plenty of times where she wants to wear a dress and she loves having tea parties with her teenage sisters, and they love having those opportunities to interact with her.
Yeah.
But there are other times where she displays more boy-like tendencies.
From what I know, she's a hell of a tree climber.
Absolutely. She loves, oh God. So we have a tree out in front of our house, and I might have told you this story, but I'll share it with the audience anyway. Where in the springtime, Sonya hit the button on the garage door, it opens up. And part of their actual routine is that Max kind of mills around the car while Sonya gets ready and then comes out. And Sonya comes out and Max is nowhere. And Sonya's doing everything she can not to panic.
To hold it together, yeah.
Right. And so she goes outside and she hears, "Oh, hi, Mama." And she looks up in the tree and there's Max at like head height. Like, how the hell did you get that high?
Yeah.
And so, she couldn't immediately see her because there's foliage in the way. It's like, where the, oh my God.
Yeah.
That, and she's trying not.
They say kids don't grow on trees.
If she finds my wallet up there, that'd be great. But she was trying not to overly panic and make Max scared about how high she was. So she was like, "Gonna hold it in. Okay, work your way down now, sweetheart. It's time to go."
Yeah.
And so they loaded up in the trunk and headed off. But she also went through a period. She's going through it right now, like right now,
Yeah.
where. I actually hate saying this because I don't want to attribute this to just boys. It applies to girls just as much. But historically, the Star Wars series has lended itself, in my experience, more towards boys
I know where you're going, yeah.
than it is towards girls.
Yeah.
We just finished the original trilogy
Yeah.
of Star Wars. We finished Empire Strikes Back one night, and she begged
To watch the next one?
to watch the next one. She's like, "We need to watch the next one. We have enough time." It's like maybe an hour and a half before bedtime. There's no way we were going to finish
Your daughter was saying this?
it. My daughter was begging us to finish the
She
movie.
knew like what time it was relative to bedtime and how long it would take to watch the movie?
No. She didn't know that.
Okay, I was like, wow. She's brilliant.
She didn't look at the clock and say, "Hey, I've got an hour and a half."
But she knew
it
that there
wasn't
was another
quite yet
chapter.
bedtime.
Yeah.
And there was like, "Oh, we can watch it."
Yeah.
And so Sonya and I were kind of looking at each other. We're like, "We really want to do this?"
That's funny. So did you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As soon as she was like, "Okay, I'm caving on this because it's going to happen, but I
And-
can't say it yet."
That's the Ewok one. Did she like the Ewoks?
I don't know if she liked the Ewoks or not. We didn't talk about that. I don't like them, but my wife adores them.
It's not the best part of the series, but I do understand that they have a certain appeal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the Disneyification of Star Wars before Disney bought
Before
them
the
out.
actual Disneyification of
Right.
Star Wars, yeah.
Right. The original story to that was that was supposed to be the Wookiee planet, which would have been like
really?
way more interesting.
Wow.
Right. The Ewoks were actually supposed to be Wookiees. And then they decided somewhere along the line, George Lucas was like, "No, let's change them into something else.
Huh.
Let's shrink them down and turn them into teddy bears."
Was there a reason? Was it costume manufacturing? Was it appeal to audiences? Or do
There's an
you,
air bubble in there.
yeah, it's the toe of the boot.
Yeah, I noticed.
I thought about maybe trying to go this way.
Might be a good idea.
Trying to apply logic to a boot-shaped glass.
What a time to be alive. I don't know all the decisions that went
okay.
into it. I think that it was about making it a more marketable character.
Makes sense. 'Cause especially at that point, they're like, look, we've got the cash cow, we've got the last chapter at that point.
Right, exactly. Might
Let's
as well rope
blow
in
it
as
up as
many
big.
young kids as we can.
Yeah.
And then we can make some really crappy TV movies off of that, too.
Yeah, never
You
seen
remember
those. I've never seen
No?
them. I'm aware of them.
Oh, man.
Right?
We had
Ewok Christmas special even, isn't it? Or is it
No,
not
that was,
Christmas?
that was
It's-
before that.
Oh.
The Star Wars Christmas special was like in the late 70s after the original Star Wars. But there was two series built around the Ewoks in Endor that had very little Star Warsy kind of things to do. And the main reason that I remember it is that there was a little girl in one of them with really blonde, really, really curly hair. And it reminded me of my sister, who was about the same age as the little girl in the show. And so my sister fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And we would watch it regularly. You know, it was one of those things, so like, I just can't get enough of it.
It's funny.
And older brother is like, nobody dies in this. Nobody gets shot.
There's nothing to lose.
Right. This is just too syrupy sweet for me.
Yeah.
And so we had it on VHS and that's why. So we watched that, and Max is really into it. And now we're about to go into The Dark Times, episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, you are?
We are.
Yeah.
The actual idea is that we're going to get there to the point where we can go out and see The Last Jedi and take Max there.
Nice.
This will be her first movie experience at the theater.
Ooh.
So
Good one.
Big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an event.
In fact, there's a story in my wife's family where she was in utero for Star Wars when her mom and dad went to go see it.
Oh.
And so when Max was about to be born, we needed to go off and see a sci-fi film to keep the tradition going.
That's funny.
And so she and I went to go see the Star Trek movie with Chris Pine.
Yeah. The first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the remake J.J. Abrams thing.
Yeah.
Which is a decent film. It holds up and feels like a solid sci-fi film.
Yeah.
So she absorbed it, osmosis.
Nice. You had a daughter, not a tribble.
Right. Yes. Well, in fact, she didn't come out with hardly any hair at all. The joke for the first 2 years is that my wife would say, "Oh, look how much hair she has," and I would say whatever because it was like peach fuzz.
Yeah.
So
That's funny.
So there's that. There was a question I was going to ask him. Anyway, so Max has that as a trait. She's much more independent than any other kid that I've seen, except for my second daughter, Anna. They both have, they both have got a rebellious streak to them, and so I see that a lot. That commonality between them.
That's cool. Do they? Would you say that? Is there any noticeable difference in their interactions as opposed to Max's interactions with the other sisters, or would you say it's not much different at all? Do they identify that trait in each other? Do they share a rebellious bond?
No.
Nothing that you've observed?
Not as much as that I've observed. I don't know that they connect on that specific issue at least.
Okay.
They have their own connection.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily know that they conspire in order to sneak out early on curfew or something.
That's funny.
It's hard
crawling back in the windo into your
17
crib or
and the
your little
4-year-old are unaccounted for.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? No, I appreciate that aspect about them.
Yeah.
It feels like, I don't know if it was necessarily my guidance or somebody else's guidance or just life and society kind of wore Anna down, and that's not fair because she's got plenty of spunk and those sorts of things. She's learned how to pick her spots and know when she can get away with a little bit more and when she can't.
Yeah.
Max hasn't learned that.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily concerned, but I'm interested to see if she just never learns that.
Yeah.
She's very independent and outspoken and no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
In fact, my favorite phrase of hers that I'll hear from her often is, "I got this." She would regularly tell me, "I got this. Can I help you with that?" "No, I got this." All right. You do it.
Let's see it.
Yep.
It's funny.
So, that's good. What are you looking forward to as a dad? And by that I mean, are you looking forward to teaching him how to drive, or your first drink together, whether he's actually of age to drink, or those sorts of things. Wedding, I don't know.
I've been accused in the past of maybe giving it too many non-answers, but I would say I'm looking forward to the whole experience, both the things that I expect to happen and that I feel like I will sort of have a hand in making sure happen, as well as the things I have no idea that we'll share together. So, like I had mentioned earlier, being fascinated at his ability to color in the lines all of a sudden, like it was one day to the next where it clicked for him.
Right.
And that makes me proud, both because just it's my son, but also because I am an artistic person, and so that's so I look forward to, I guess, just in a general sense, witnessing the development, because so far it's been amazing, and it'll get more complex and more amazing. But there are also specific things. For example, I have a large comic book collection. I've saved a lot of things like memorabilia and toys and certain things. Like growing up, occasionally we would have a garage sale, or you would part with things for one reason or another. There's certain things that I always held on to, and in the back of my mind it was because I had a certain attachment to them, but also I think a big part of it was in the back of my mind. I thought, how cool would this be? Like I liked when my dad had this. It was a Sports Illustrated board
swimsuit issue.
No.
Oh.
I found those on my own. It was a board game kind of college football. And it was some sort of thing. I have pieces of it still, but not the whole thing, which it kills me. But you had these cards or these pages for different teams, Notre Dame, etc. And they had statistical things about them that you would sort of match up against whatever card you pulled as your opponent, and then you would roll die, and it was basically like a college football Dungeons and Dragons thing.
Oh,
and you would move the marker. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I had a professional football version of that, and it might be the same thing, it might be different. But my stepdad played Stratomatic football with me.
I wonder if that's what it was.
And it was professional football. And yeah, you would have these play charts.
Yeah.
And you could play either like the beginner version, or you could play like the super advanced version. And it wasn't electronic football with little guys running around. You would just like pick your play,
kind of
run or pass
on the yards,
and then you would roll the dice. And before you chose your play, your opponent guessed run or pass. And then based off of their guess, determine your success rate. If they guessed the wrong thing, you're much more likely to have a positive play. And so we would play that on a regular basis, like, because I was just really into football at the time. And I was really blessed with the stepdad that understood that, because I was a really nerdy, social outcast kid. I was the Charlie Brown in my school. Nobody really liked me, but
he didn't pick up the football right when you were going to kick it, though, did he?
No. He actually was one of the first friends that I had. Somebody that I could actually really count on. And so we would play Stratomatic football with different teams.
Yeah, that's cool.
And play out entire games. So it sounds like what you're describing is that, but of college football version.
Yeah, and it was cool not because I really had any knowledge of college football at that time, but just that it was like, here's this relic from when I was a kid. I mean, really, he probably played it when he was like in high school. But to me, I'm going like, oh, this is from your youth or before I knew you, kind of a thing. And you're sharing it with me, and that was cool to me. And fast forward, I ended up being like, college football is one of my favorite sports, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm not saying that it's like a result of that directly, but just the sharing of it was cool to me. And so I think I kind of subconsciously took that with me and was like, these things mean something to me, and I know that meant something to him, because that was one of the only things he kind of shared with me from a time before me, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to, really nerdy stuff. I mean, I have a box of action figures of Marvel heroes, and I have an extensive comic book collection, and those things. And I have them because I spent a lot of time accumulating those things, so they have value for that reason. But also, I'm really excited for the time I can be like, let me bestow upon you these texts, and always put them back in the sleeves.
Why are you drinking grape pop with that?
Yeah.
Why grape? Of all the things.
That's one
Grape's
thing I look
always the
forward to, though.
stickiest.
Yeah, stickiest and the most staining.
Right.
I look forward to that. I look forward to sharing kind of some of my youth with him. And just other things like he doesn't have the coordination to play catch yet.
Right.
And that's not necessarily something that I have a memory of playing catch necessarily. I mean, we threw the football around and all that stuff, but just being able to go, hey, let's go outside and throw the football or throw the baseball around.
Yeah,
I think that'll be cool.
You're hitting me right here, because that not in the microphone, but in the heart.
Boom.
Because even with girls, we still go outside and throw the football around.
That's cool.
Even the teenagers and the 22-year-old, she'll get out there and throw the football around.
Because it's not about the interest in that sport, or it's about...
I mean, I would love to say that I pass along my interest in football to them, but they don't give a crap.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Well, or even if they do, but it's more the idea of saying, let's get outdoors and do something together for a little bit.
Right.
I mean, that's something cheesy, but
the mere idea of just playing catch, of just the rhythm and the process of it.
Yeah.
It harkens back to Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner and having a catch with your dad. Right?
Yeah.
I taught my girls how to throw a spiral in order to make no. This is one of the things that I always would have valued in any sort of potential mate that I found.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure you have this skill.
That's funny. Yeah.
That you know how to throw a football.
Yeah.
And they all throw really great spirals. I haven't gotten to Max yet.
No,
but she's got a good hand-eye coordination for the bat. Her oldest sister Tori gave her a bat and ball combination.
Cool.
Like a wiffle ball kind of thing, and a plastic bat. And we had gotten one as well. But it's one of her favorite things to do during the spring is to get out there and we'll throw some balls around and she'll hit them. Yeah. And with wiffle, you have a high amount of success if you make contact.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
great.
true. Yeah.
That's rewarding in its own right. But no, I really enjoy getting out there, even if it's just for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Of like just having a chance to play catch with somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we really share.
Yeah.
And something that I'm looking forward to Max and enjoying further with the older girls, especially now that they're older. One of the other things to really enjoy, and you have a local tie to it, this is going to baseball games.
Yeah.
And the best one that we can go to, we could go out to Hillsboro, I suppose. We haven't done that yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No, but we've gone down to the Salem Volcanoes games, and we'll watch a game together, and all the girls are there. And again, they're not really interested in the game, and I recognize that, but they still have a really good time, or at least from everything I can tell. And it makes my heart explode that they're willing to go to a game because they know how much it means to me. And we went for my 40th birthday, and my oldest daughter, Tori, snuck away and paid whatever sort of fee that they have to put up a happy 40th birthday Love Her Story up on the big screen.
That's cool.
It was one of the best moments of my life.
That's awesome.
So it's those sorts of moments. It's the tiny little moments that you don't realize until they actually happen, that you start appreciating. And as a little bit of advice from one dad to another, even though it's unsolicited, you're going to have a million of those moments, and you're not going to remember any of them. So do some sort of journal, write it, post it on Facebook, and do the time hop thing, or whatever the case may be. And those are not paid plugs, by the way. But do something to record that for your own purpose, so that you can look back on it and say, "Oh, right, I forgot about that. That was such an amazing moment. How could I forget about that?" Well, it's because you're going to be blessed with all of these moments throughout their entire life. And it's going to be so hard to track all of them. So record them as much as you possibly can for your own sake, just so you can appreciate it.
Yeah, that's one thing my parents said a lot. My dad said a lot was, you know, when I was growing up, there were video cameras. I mean, that technology was not rare necessarily, but it also wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is now, recording devices of any kind. And we obtained one at some point, and I'm sure he's got some little video cassettes of different things. I've seen some of them, and
good luck converting those too.
Right. So there is documentation of me treating my little brother like a jerk. But I remember him saying that enough times, and then coupled with the fact that just the technology is so available. I mean, we carry cameras around with us everywhere all day, that my wife and I have made it a point to try to be cognizant of, like, obviously there's certain things that are going to happen you're not going to be prepared for, but like if you do know, hey, this might be memorable, that we try to document it.
That's a really interesting thing. As a modern day dad, you're right. I'm constantly carrying around a camera all the time. Right? And so there are times where I'll just go ahead and record something because I'm anticipating something happening, or just trying to appreciate the moment. And there are other times where I'll actually take a moment and say, you know what? No, this one's just for me. Like, I'm not going to record it because I don't want to be caught up in all of that. I just want to really appreciate this moment and just savor it.
That's interesting.
For what it is.
I mean, my wife says sometimes, "Oh, don't you miss when he was just a little baby? He's just a little baby." And I say, if I'm answering honestly, I don't wish he was a little baby again. I made it a point to enjoy that as much as I could, knowing how fleeting it was going to be.
Right.
And appreciating all the pluses and the struggles or whatever for what they are, both ways.
Right.
But and I don't want to rush past that, but I also don't want to go backwards either. I'm enjoying seeing where this is going and all that. So that just made me think of that as just being, I guess, in terms of the sort of dad advice or whatever, that's a big one, is just try to, and it's like hard to tell someone, try to appreciate things. Well, what do I do? How do I do that? I don't know that I could tell you that part, but whatever, think about it. so that you can come up with whatever you do need to do that. But that's interesting.
Yeah, no, in fact, that's an interesting part of my journey is that I had my oldest at such a young age that I was so busy trying to work and trying to provide, and in many different ways failing, just because I was an 18-year-old kid trying to provide enough money in order to work a full-time job and pay rent and food and all of those other sorts of things. That I couldn't take the time in order to appreciate the journey that I was on. I loved the moments that I had with my oldest. But I always felt like I was so busy and that there were all these other things that needed to happen in order to take care of her. And so when my older kids came along, Anna and Bailey, I was like, okay, well, this is. I was a little more established, and I could appreciate it more, and I did. I soaked it up as best I could, but even then, I was still kind of busy. Right. And then I got to a point where that relationship had ended, and I started a new one. And we were going to have a child. We made the conscious decision to have a child. And I was like, okay, this is my last go around on this. I know it is. So I'm going to soak it up for everything that it's worth.
For everything,
Right. And so having that experience as someone who doesn't have to worry about their job or worry about their next check or any of those sorts of things, and I can be like, I can plan for things, I can anticipate things, and I know what to expect because of my prior experience, that I can appreciate it more this time around. And I'm just trying to soak it up as much as I possibly can at each different stage and trying to recognize each stage so that it's like, until I have grandchildren, this is my last journey through this. And so you might as well just appreciate it as much as you can. And if you're in a spot where you're saying that this likely is the only child that you're going to have, then maybe there's more onus on that. So, what are your hopes for Luca?
Well, I had mentioned earlier that maybe talking about the percentage or whatever, if you want to quantify maybe what did I learn with regards to, preparation for fatherhood from stuff that was verbally communicated to me explicitly versus just what I had observed or what I absorbed or whatever. One of the things that I carry with me all the time that my dad did explicitly state a number of times is like, whatever you do what makes you happy.
That is such an important message.
And he didn't try to say what that would be. Whatever it is, do that. The context was obviously with, don't harm anyone to get what you want or anything like that. But in terms of when you're faced with a decision, how do I want my life to kind of go from this juncture? What will make me happier in the long run or whatever? Or what is it that I end up really wanting from my life at a particular point? Make that happen and don't let other people talk you out of it or obstruct that or whatever. So it's another classic Aaron non-answer, which is I don't know maybe what I want for him because I don't know what he'll want for him. But I want to I want him to, I guess, I want him to have interests in things that he likes or is skilled at or whatever, and for him to embrace them. Like, in other words, if he really likes something but he's embarrassed about it or feels like maybe I shouldn't like this, I don't want that. I want him to be okay with what he likes and what he wants and what makes him happy, and I want him to go all in on those things. And I mean, I think that's it. I mean, at the simplest form, I want him to be happy, and at the most advanced form, it's like whatever that is, I want to help him search for it and identify it and embrace it and excel at it or whatever.
Did you follow that advice from your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think about it all the time.
Good.
I mean, even back to the whole idea of leaving one job for another. It's a process of evaluating things and being like, you know, what will make me happy as an individual, but also what will make me happy by virtue of making the people that are important to me happy, and those types of things.
And you're setting that example for him. He's observing that just the same way that you observe your dad, and you are making calculated choices about what satisfaction that you're deriving from these things, and what you're willing to accept and what you're not.
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. So on the flip side of that, what is the Aaron non-answer to what is your greatest fears about his progression through life? What are you most scared of? Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's complacency, maybe it's...
Well, I mean, I guess it's sort of just the inverse of that last answer, which is not that I think this will happen, but I guess a fear would be that he's not able to identify what makes him happy, or realize the things that he's good at and apply them, whatever that means, or, you know, feel comfortable in a very general life sense. I mean, the world can be a very uncomfortable place to be. In too many ways to describe, but my hope is that he can go through life confidently and assuredly, and I guess my fear would be that for some reason or other he ends up feeling like that's not the case.
So you talked about the stuff, the physical things that you have with your son, that you want to share with your son at a later point.
Yeah.
Comic books and drawing and some of the other pieces that you have. What are some things that you want to share with your adult son down the road? Whether it not necessarily physical things, but like, what are things that, traits or beliefs that you have, or those sorts of things that you hope to pass on to him?
It's hard because, and I think that maybe, I mean, I can't say this as a fact, but I feel like maybe that was one thing that my dad was uncertain about with my brother and I, was that I guess it's sort of an interesting balance of wanting to guide him to become the person that you think he should be, and how that lines up with the person as he develops that he thinks he should be. and the idea that maybe those don't always align.
Sure.
And so I guess if there's something I'm uncertain about, it's that I look forward to and sharing wisdom, for lack of a better word, or just experience, I guess is a better word. And giving that to them, like, take this, and hopefully it helps you make some decisions. But I don't want to make them for you,
Sure.
because that could be just as detrimental as.
I really like that. I really like that of being able to say, I'm just going to repeat you. Here are my experiences, and this is how I derived at that choice.
Yeah.
You make the right decision for you, but make an informed decision.
Yeah. That's what my dad always said is like some variation of I don't want to tell you what to do, or I don't want to give you advice that if you don't want it, but or even I can't tell you what to do because I don't know what's right or wrong. Mm-hmm. But I can give you my what I've gone through and how I've dealt with it and how it's turned out, and you can decide if that sounds like good or bad, basically. But he told me that was another thing he told me a lot of times was just anytime you want to know kind of whether I have an experience with that or any opinions about that, I will be elated to share my opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And have you take that sort of under advisement more than follow that as code or whatever. So, and that's, so I think that's kind of how I've become about it too. And my aim is to, lead by example and all that stuff, but also encourage him or whatever, that he's got his own mind and his own experiences that some of which I'm not going to be able to speak to directly, but hopefully I can provide enough information kind of around that can help him, like you said, inform a decision based on it. So.
Well, I think we've covered quite a bit here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a couple of things. I've got one more question for you, but before I do that,
all right,
I'm going to give you a little bit of time to, in my ego-filled head, that this lasts long enough, that YouTube lasts long enough, that the country lasts long enough, who knows, that this will be around in 20 years, and Luca happens to stumble across it. What do you want to share with adult Luca?
Oh, man.
This is one of those beer-infused sort of questions of like, oh, that's a great question.
It's hard. I guess I would just...
Indulge me?
Yeah.
Share with the camera.
Okay. I guess in terms of sharing something with you, I would share an invitation that's already there to come to me and lean on me and ask me anything you need to, knowing that I may not have an answer, or the answer I have may not be the right answer, but that hopefully it will help you in some way, whether that's knowing how someone has dealt with something, or maybe knowing that's okay, that's not some way I want to deal with it. So I guess it's not unlike a message I would send to you now, your 4-year-old self, but that maybe you'd be in a developed mind and could apply that in a real way.
It's awesome. It's a fantastic message. You take your dad to a ball game. So,
Cheers? Not yet?
One more
Okay.
question.
Oh, I thought that was the one more. Okay, I'm ready.
My favorite question.
Okay.
And possibly my favorite guest to ask this question.
Oh man, what could this be?
What's your favorite dad joke?
Oh yes. Well, I tried to prepare myself for this. Now I add a caveat that maybe the best one changes over time.
Oh, it does.
But
it absolutely does.
One of my most memorable ones was around the dinner table. I have no earthly clue how this would have come up in conversation because I probably was in middle school or the beginnings of high school. There was a film that I'd never seen called He Got Game. I believe it was a basketball movie.
Sounds about right. Yes.
My dad came up with, for some reason, a notion that it would be. Wouldn't it be something if there was a movie about the Human Torch called He Got Flame? And I distinctly remember my brother and I not necessarily being a stranger to his sort of word humor, but just booing that joke to a point where I think maybe he would have taken it personally. I think it got him down a little bit, but he can be happy to know that I still remember it, and I have now come to approve.
Absolutely.
Of it.
Okay, so bonus question. Bonus question. What are the best dad jokes? The one that people laugh at, or the ones that
groan at?
Yeah.
Well,
the one where you just know you got them.
well, that's the thing. I think is laugh or groan. You know you got them.
Right.
So I think I'd lean towards the groaners.
Fair enough.
I think that's how you know you did it right.
So, over my lifetime, I've had quite a few of these moments.
Yeah.
And I had to get an early start on it. One of my very first ones was, you've got this infant in front of you,
Yeah.
and they wear different clothing and so forth, and they've got these tiny, cute little socks, right?
Yeah.
Super tiny socks. And so you're putting them on your baby, but foot's moving around all over the place. And I remember picking it up and looking at my wife and just shaking it and going, shake your booty, shake your booty. So that's one of my favorite ones. That was I feel like that was homegrown.
Yeah.
That maybe it was out there, but I like to take credit for it because I'd never heard it anywhere else before.
And I would probably, if I were forced to put money on the reaction, that was a groaner.
That was
a groaner.
That was absolutely.
And it was satisfying, wasn't it?
Oh, it absolutely was. It was one of those things where you're like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But I'll take it. So, with that said, thank you everybody for watching. The question for the week would be, last week we asked, what was your favorite dad in cinema or media? Any thoughts on that one?
Oh, favorite dad in cinema.
Or TV. I led with the idea of like Mike Seaver from Growing Pains.
I was thinking
and Derek
of Family
suggested
Ties.
Mufasa. Exactly.
Oh, Mufasa. Good.
Yeah, that was another good one. Yeah, that one works great. But
I would not go with Peter Griffin, probably.
Probably not. No, my dad hated The Simpsons.
Really?
Just because of the entire idea of like domestic abuse and choking a child.
Right. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, and my dad refused to watch it after that.
Yeah, we didn't watch Simpsons in my house either.
No.
I don't know.
I enjoyed it, but I'm certainly glad my dad didn't follow that example.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's certainly the Al Bundy one, but maybe that's not the best
role model
either.
Yeah.
So which one would you choose? Or what one's the most memorable for you?
How about I can't think of his name, but Family Matters.
Oh yeah.
The policeman.
Yeah, Carl. Right.
Carl was a good guy.
Right.
Always well-intentioned.
Did they ever establish that he was the same character as the one in Die Hard?
I don't know if they did, but gosh, they were similar.
Right.
Could have been.
I want to say that they were, but I never
So what
watched
you're
enough
proposing
Miami Man.
is some kind of Bruce. What is Bruce Willis's character's name in that? Die Hard. Well, a crossover.
John McClane.
Yes.
Yes.
A McClane Urkel crossover.
Yes.
They exist in the same universe.
Probably.
That's a buddy comedy.
Right. That's a terrible buddy comedy. I'm
It
watching
would be
it.
garbage. Yeah.
Okay, so the question this week is, what is your favorite song that involves fathers?
Oh.
Right? And there's some really good ones out there. There is the Paul Simon song with fathers and daughters. There's plenty of country songs that I don't listen to, that I don't know the name of.
They're out there.
Absolutely. There's also the John Mayer song.
I was going to say,
And
is that
people-
about fathers or mothers?
Fathers.
Fathers don't let your daughters
Right.
do something.
Well, you might be thinking of, well, that puts in another one, which is the guy who smokes a lot of weed. Willie Nelson.
Oh,
Willie Nelson.
yeah.
Mothers don't let your children grow up to be cowboys.
Is that what I'm
I'm
thinking
slaughtering that, but
of? No, but that might...
but John Mayer does have a
Yeah, daughters.
song. Yeah, fathers could be good to your daughters.
Yeah.
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 So there's that. Plenty of songs out there. We're not looking for like When You Call Me Big Papa or I'm Your Daddy or those sorts of songs. We're talking about specifically the father-child
Yeah.
relationship. I think the song Blurry from Color of Mud, it was a big hit in the
Oh, Puddle of Mud.
Puddle of Mud, yeah. I think that one
Is that maybe?
is revolving around the relationship between a father and a son. I know the music video was about that.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
we're interested to hear what our audience has to share. Again, thank you for joining us. If you made it through the entire video, that's fantastic. If you cut out in between and then fast forwarded to this part, that's totally fine too. I think you missed out on some really good content. But in the meantime, to dads.
To dads. Wow, that was a clinker.
That was a good one. Night, everybody.
Signing off.
Seriously, and I mean seriously, I've had to lose some serious hairs asleep because of this perilous bear. Trees in the street are waving goodbye, bye, and everybody's talking about the times of the sight.